This is Rating Descending,
where we watch IMDb's Worst 250 so you don't have to.
My name is Abigail Ward.
And I'm Michelle St. Clair.
And tonight, we watched Look Who's Talking Now. The dogs can talk at a family of 4, where mom loses her job the same day dad gets a job as a pilot for a cute single boss. Let's watch.
What?
So I had the worst night's sleep of my entire life, i.e. I got no sleep the other day.
It's hard to get worse than none.
It's just zero, just at a solid zero. I kind of pulled out my hair all night, really stressfully thinking why can't I go to sleep? Why can't I go to sleep? And that made it worse because there's nothing like stress to keep you awake and worry and anxiety. So every time I can't go to sleep, I lie there and I worry about the fact that I'm not asleep, and then I start spiraling. And then my partner, Claude, is just asleep because he falls asleep like that. I'm looking over at him snoring, and I'm so envious of the fact that he can just fall asleep within 10 minutes and I am lying there awake for 5 hours.
Yeah.
It was terrible. I had to go to my GP and she had some good advice, but I think I just have to find sleep management and sleep hygiene methods to actually help me go to sleep. I'm getting older, man. I have to start implementing methods to help me get off to sleep and have a restful night's sleep, because I'm kind of at the age where that matters to me now.
Maybe it's an age thing. Maybe it's also just a mental health thing. I'm someone who's had a lot of sleep issues throughout my whole life. Just sleep is one of the most consistent markers of how well I'm doing in general.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you've seen me. I've had issues much rarer of not being able to get to sleep at all, but more than anything, just completely restless sleep. And in particular, lots of bad dreams and then waking up feeling like I didn't sleep at all.
So a couple nights before that, 2 or 3 nights before my night of zero sleep, got a really bad night's sleep again, because I kept having these dreams that people were grabbing at me and trying to put their hands over my face and pull me under the bed, lots of hands coming out of the dark and touching me and grabbing me. And then I kept waking up in distress the entire time. I thought for some reason it was my partner trying to grab me as well, and I realized I was becoming delusional and hallucinating in between my dreams, and I wasn't sure if I was conscious or not. And I started having dreams thinking it was awful. It was just layers and layers. And then the other night I kind of couldn't get off to sleep, thinking, fuck, am I gonna have those nightmares again? But my doctor gave me really good advice, saying that just lying down and closing my eyes and resting is also effective, and I don't need to worry that I'm not getting enough sleep, because just lying there in the dark and closing my eyes, putting my body horizontally, is also a form of rest. And that is really, really good advice.
You got to take the pressure out of sleeping. The pressure, I know that helps me when I have bad dreams. For one thing, when I just want to nap, just knowing that I can just lie down, not go to sleep, just lie down is really restful.
Yeah, 100%. Because I can't nap. I think my problem is that I am such an anxious person. I'm driven by anxiety, and I always feel like I'm in some way worried or stressed about something. I very rarely feel at ease.
Yeah.
And so I think that I just naturally have a lot of issues relaxing my body enough to be able to sleep, let alone nap. And the couple of times that I've napped has been when I've been horrendously ill or horrendously sick. I could never just do it leisurely every day. But even when I nap, when I say I might have a nap, what I mean is I'm going to go lie down and not sleep, because I can't. But I'm just going to close my eyes for a bit and just lie down, and that will make me feel better. And it does. You still feel you can almost just feel your body rebuilding itself. You get little nice calming buzzing in your hands and your arms, and I always get that.
Yeah,
you don't feel like you're on fire.
You've just when you've been injured somewhere and then you go lie down, you feel warm and fuzzy and as if your skin is knitting itself back together.
Yeah, you don't feel like creepy crawlies are all over you. You don't feel like you're submerging yourself in a blanket of ice.
I feel like I'm covered in worms all wriggling around.
You don't feel like you're on a yacht surrounded by 10 buxom blondes.
Oh, you're talking about a fucking rat. Okay. Okay, I was gonna say, you're talking about the sleep hygiene and stuff before. I'm a big fan of the ethos of a lot of the things we say are good for you. It's probably better to say it's good for the majority, because you got to find what's good for you specifically as a person, because like they always say, like keep your bedroom quiet and stuff. When I go to sleep with nothing, it's almost guaranteed that I have weird restless sleep. And
Interesting.
Yeah, which is why I listen to podcasts every night. Always a podcast I've listened to before, because it's just like comforting ambience. And if my mind starts to wander, it can latch on to something that is familiar rather than wandering into mentally harmful spaces and then stay there when I fall asleep. It really, really helps.
Yeah, I mean, the other night when I didn't sleep at all, I did try the method of listening to a podcast. Now, I will say I didn't listen to a comforting or familiar one. I listened to a new one, and it was totally about being buried alive, and that also didn't really help me very much.
That's not what I'm describing.
So it wasn't a great choice. No, I'll take the blame for that one.
Yeah.
But it was nice. Just I knew I needed a mental distraction.
Yeah.
What the problem was is that I was lying there in the dark, and I was like, great, well, it's just me and my mind, and I can't get to sleep, and that's making me really worried, but it's okay, I'll just distract myself. And then I'm only just beginning the process of therapy now. So I really want a therapist. The reason that my therapist didn't work out is that on my second session with her, first one I was like, second session, she screen shared with me to show me something on her laptop. So I saw the background that she uses on her laptop, and it was a selfie of her and her little dog called Molly, who's this like white little yappy Shih Tzu, and it's like the absolute pinnacle of a dog I cannot enjoy. It's a picture of her and her dog, and it had like this Snapchat filter on where it had the really weird slimmed down face and the big blue eyes and like the weird blurry sepia filter over it. It just looked bizarre. It looked like the kind of Snapchat filter that unhinged people use. And it was her own laptop background, and it was that selfie. And I was like, I can't have you as my therapist. I can't confide in you. I wouldn't have you as a friend. I know it's a small thing, but I think it's just a real good indicator of who she was as a person.
You were totally wrong, because this is 100% an eye roll. What the fuck? This is a terrible reason to change therapists.
No, it's not. It's not. I think it was a great indication of the kind of person that she is.
It doesn't matter the kind of person she is.
I'm not trying to shit on this woman. Yes, it does, because
Can she do her job?
I want a therapist that I feel like I can really open up to and talk to and get. And I just honestly I felt the whole time there was this barrier. And when I saw that laptop background, I was like, nah, that's exactly why I don't want to talk to you, is that this is just an example of why you're not the kind of, and it's not me shitting on people taking selfies or people that use Snapchat filters. It was the combination of effects going on in this one laptop background where for me, I was like, that's a step too far. That's too much for me.
More than anything, that is quite busy for a laptop background.
Very busy. And I have to say, I've never seen someone just have a selfie as their own laptop background.
Yeah. I would hate to be in my own laptop background.
Yeah. I don't know why she needed a selfie as her laptop background and was comfortable sharing it with clients. Anyway, speaking of the straw that broke the camel's back.
Nice. That's a great pivot.
Or rather, not really at all, because I fucking loved this movie. This week we watched Look Who's Talking Now. What? I did. I fucking loved it.
No.
I fucking loved it.
No.
Michelle, just say, yes, we did, like you normally do.
Yeah, we both loved
we
it.
Did. We No, we watched it. We both watched it.
Oh, we both watched it.
Yeah. You know how I say we watched this week, and then you go, yeah, we did. We did watch it. You know how we have that back and forth?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we both watched it.
And I loved it.
I didn't love it, though.
Why? What the fuck?
What is there to love about this? This is it's 45 minutes distributed across 5 montages, and then 45 minutes of a kids movie that is totally different than every other minute in the Look Who's Talking franchise.
Yeah. Look, it was absolute trash, but I really enjoyed a lot of it. Like, I really did. Like, okay, to say I loved it is an overstatement. But to say that I actually had a really good time in some of the bits, that I really enjoyed a lot of the performances, that I thought some of those montage and dream sequences in it were really cute.
Yes, I agree with you there. Now, here's a question that I think from me will clarify where you're coming from. Did you watch Look Who's Talking 1 or 2, either for this or previously?
I have watched Look Who's Talking when I was a kid, and I remember a lot of it. Didn't watch the sequel.
Why? I not only have watched Look Who's Talking 1 a bunch when I was a kid, But also I watched Look Who's Talking 1 and 2 again for this during the week.
Yeah.
And you know what? Look Who's Talking 1, I feel it gets remembered as the movie where the baby talks. The baby doesn't talk. The baby has a weird voiceover from Bruce Willis that, for me, creates more questions than it answers. But the actual A-story of a charming romantic comedy between Kirstie Alley and John Travolta, genuinely nice. I think Look Who's Talking 1 is a charming movie.
Yeah, I have fond memories of it. I really liked it.
They have
I know
great
that
chemistry.
In comparison, Look Who's Talking 3 is a pile of trash. But the thing is, it still has Kirstie Alley and John Travolta doing really likable performances. I have to say, they're both incredibly fun to watch. And Kirstie Alley, let's put her as a person aside and just focus on her performance. Because again, I think she's a really likable actress, and I can see why she was such a success in the 80s and 90s.
It's such a shame how awful she's turned out to be, because she's
turned out to be an absolute cunt.
But 80s, 90s Kirstie Alley is just honestly goals, dreams. I want to be her. I want to be with her.
Yeah.
My God.
She's got beautiful hair.
Love her hair.
She's just like,
I love her croaky voice. It's great.
Exactly. She's got a wonderful voice. There's something really it's not even that she's everyday, because she's not everyday. If you saw her in the street, you'd feel like she's quite striking, but she's definitely good at playing the everyday
But she's
woman.
approachable.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And again, she's so likable, and her little one-liners in this film and in the first and second, I'm sure, she performs them really well. And I really liked Molly as a character. And also John Travolta is also really fun to watch in this. He's giving a really sweet performance.
You can see why he's successful in a cult. He's very charming.
Yeah, that's right. But I think they have good chemistry on scene. And also the two child actors in this, the two kids playing their children, were really good. The kid that played Mikey was great, and then also the little girl playing Julie was also lovely to watch.
But it also fucking confused me, right? Because
wait, we haven't talked about the dogs.
Well, that's what I'm getting to, right? Because in Look Who's Talking 1, it's, like I said, a story, Kirstie Alley and John Travolta in a genuinely charming romantic comedy. Meanwhile, Kirstie Alley has had a kid. There's also one of my favorite lines where George Segal is about to have an affair with Kirstie Alley, and he's like, I'm gonna burst if I don't kiss you. And she's like, oh, and then hard cut to a clip of sperm going down the vagina to round, round, get around, I get around. And I'm like, that's fucking excellent filmmaking.
Yeah.
And then Look Who's Talking 2, which is spelt T-O-O because they have a second kid, excellent, is like a Raymond Chandler play about a potential divorce, because they spent the whole fucking time arguing, but then they also amp up Mikey and Julie talking. And it seems like the babies, by the way, can psychically communicate, and I really want to come back to that. Yeah. In this one, now they can talk with words, so they don't seem to communicate psychically at all, but instead it's dogs. Opens up so many doors. Why can dogs communicate it literally starts with John Travolta and Kirstie Alley being like, man, being a parent is hard, and then it cuts to outside where two dogs are like, hey, we're gonna fuck, and then it cuts to you ain't nothing but a hound dog, and the same clip of the sperm traveling down the vagina. And I'm like, why did you need to make it so explicit that the dog's fucked? I get it, but I didn't need to be part of this.
I think the beginning of the film for me was the worst bit, because I was the same. I was kind of like, oh, getting used to these dogs cyclically communicating is not for me. But as soon as, and the film took ages to get off. It took half an hour for them to have Rox as their dog, and then for him to meet Daphne, and then it just took about half an hour for the dog to come into the family. So that was far too long. But I spent the first half hour being like, I don't get this world. I don't like the talking dogs. And I don't really understand what is actually going to happen. As soon as Rox joined the family, I started getting into it. I was enjoying the Danny DeVito and Diane Keaton experience, because they voiced both of the dogs.
I can't believe this movie takes 30 minutes to get to the very complicated plot point of they get a dog.
Yeah.
Why does it take so long? They get a dog. The movie should start.
Look,
Kirstie Alley and John Travolta are having a hard time being parents. We go to outside, dogs have had sex. Then cut to, they're getting a dog. 5 minutes. You're ready.
What I liked about it is that it really made my overview really easy this week. So I'm going to launch right into that just to get the plot out of the way. by the way, here's a couple of details. So as you mentioned just before, the first Look Who's Talking is about a baby that is just narrated by Bruce Willis.
So
and then
strange.
The second Look Who's Talking, it's so weird. The second Look Who's Talking, and it was a success, and I can see why. The second Look Who's Talking is this baby getting used to the fact that his family, he now has a kid sister called Julie, and him and Julie, also Julie is voiced in that second one by Roseanne Barr,
who has a real life Joker arc.
Yeah, they have this back and forth for the second one. And then, as you say, they're now grown up by this third film, but it's the dogs who are now psychically speaking. The logic of this universe befuddles and confounds.
So many questions.
So, just a bit of information about this film. This was a 1994 film. It has 4.4 stars on IMDb. We're still in the 4.4s.
Yeah,
like,
we
this
are.
is a real slow decline. I think we've been on the 4.4s for like half a year.
If I remember, we're going to be in like 4s for almost, I think, half of the whole thing. And then there's going to be a steep drop.
Interesting. So we're really wading through a lot of the mediocre bad films to get to the really, really bad films.
Well, because the list bottoms at 2.
It does. Oh, no.
I think the last one might be 1.8 and the one before that is 2.
But this film was directed by Tom Ropolowski. And it was also written by Tom and his wife, Leslie Dixon. And I got really excited because I looked up Leslie Dixon, female screenwriters, fun. She wrote the 1980s hit with Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, Overboard, which is fantastic. And then she's also responsible for heaps of films that are technically rewrites because that's what she began to specialize in. But she wrote things like Mrs. Doubtfire, Heaven, Freaky Friday, Pay It Forward, and the 2007 Hairspray. Like, she's responsible for a lot of really fun and sometimes like teen and child focused films, which is great.
It bums me out that that's the director, though, because the first 2, if I remember, were directed by Amy Heckerling, who did like Clueless and Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Nice.
You know, we were close. We almost had
Tom
Amy
Ropolowski
Heckerling.
and his wife, Leslie Dixon. Well, they seem like a really sweet director and writer, wife and husband. So go them. They've made some decent stuff.
Well, not this, though.
No, not this, though. But just also, before I do the overview, this film had a $22 million budget. Do you want to guess how much it made?
I feel like I'm going to feel bad because it can't just be like 40 million where it's like, yeah, I get why they didn't make a fourth one. I feel like it's going to be worse or it's going to be a lot and it's going to make me feel much sadder. 10 million is my guess.
It's exactly 10 million.
Hey! I thought, what's the saddest number I can think of? Not 1 million because that's like too like blow your eyes out, but 10 half.
Here's my overview. I'm actually happy with this overview because this film has such little plot. It was pretty easy to write up.
We so rarely are happy with these overviews.
Well, I mean, this is the exact opposite of what I had to deal with Species 2, where there was too much going on. This is great. This is just... All right. Molly gets laid off her job. James gets a job as a pilot for a beautiful, lonely businesswoman named Samantha. Their son wants a dog for Christmas, so they adopt Rox. I've just skipped over 30 minutes, baby.
Yeah.
A stray puppy. In the meantime, Samantha, James's boss, also gifts the family her poodle, Daphne. Streetwise Rox and posh Daphne do not get along in the house. Molly is grumpy about the 2 new additions as they all adjust to the chaos of their new unruly pets. She also becomes suspicious of James's new boss. Samantha is incredibly flirty towards him and she is patronizing towards Molly. Daphne and Rox break out one night for an adventure and they bond. Meanwhile, when Samantha keeps James busy at work and away from his family over Christmas, Molly begins to suspect an affair. When James isn't home on Christmas Eve, Molly decides to confront them. She accidentally crashes the family car into snow and is trapped by a wolf that Rox defends her from. Daphne gets help and rescues the family. James finds his family thanks to Rox, and Molly realizes her husband has been faithful all along. Happy endings all around.
Hey.
That's the whole film. That's it.
Look, one of the things that I feel like you can even tell from that overview, this movie is obsessed with gender. Absolutely obsessed in a way that only a 90s movie can be, with the differences between men and women. Streetwise, Rocky and posh, put together Daphne. And the difference between John Travolta and what he wants, and the difference between Kirstie Alley and what she wants. Like, it's just obsessed on every level. Even fucking Mikey and Julie.
They're definitely playing into tropes.
The boy likes the boy dog.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's like this. It's almost like, I don't feel like it hasn't got terrible intentions, because of course it's a product of its time. And the 90s really was just obsessed with these very gendered tropes of like the woman's worried about an affair and the husband's away all the time, and women are stuck up and men are cool, streetwise dogs. It's very much, just a product of the 90s. I feel like everything, especially family films, are just littered with that bullshit because they're trying to show a nuclear family.
I mean, this is in number 2, but there was even a point in number 2 where Mikey and Julie are watching TV. Mikey sees like an ad for some sort of truck toy that's like the all cyber Cougar Blaster 33. And Julie's like, oh man, I want a Cougar Blaster. And then Mikey yells at her, that's for boys only. And I'm like, that's how this fucking shit starts. All right? Get it out of here.
Yeah, man. That's what my brother used to do to me. I remember my brother had a PlayStation 1 and he got to play it all the time. And I always wanted to play it, but he wouldn't let me play it, even though it was technically for both of us. And it was this like whole dialogue of like, girls don't play video games. Why would you want to play a video game? And if you play a video game, you suck at it. And you're going to suck at it because now you're anxious because I'm watching you and I'm saying you're going to suck at it. So you're going to suck at it because you're anxious because I'm watching you saying it. I'm watching you playing it. And I'm telling you you're going to suck at it. So you're going to suck at it. Like, it's just this awful like vicious cycle of big brothers bullying their kid sisters and like really sticking up for this weird gender trope within sibling relationships.
Yeah. And this movie also does the other 90s thing on the same note, and then I'm done. On the same note, this movie does the other 90s comedy bullshit thing.
Michelle's walking out 30 minutes into this podcast.
Yeah, you just hear the door slam. You hear me yelling to Brooke, what the fuck?
No, you hear your car skidding away out of its parking spot.
Yeah, I live here. I'm not allowed to go anywhere, but I drive away.
I'm calling the cops.
No! John Travolta gets off the plane. Kirstie Alley is waiting there. John Travolta's boss, who is mean or whatever, is there. And he's holding Julie, and in a joke that is meant to be kids say the darndest things, tries to tell the boss a knock-knock joke. And he's like, knock-knock, who's there? And then she just says, transsexual. And it's meant to be like, oh, she doesn't look like one of those. Oh, that would be awful. What an insult. And they're like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, every fucking time. I'm so fucking sick of this. I just want to watch a fucking movie and not have being trans as a punchline.
Well, we're really noticing this trend in a lot of these really shitty films. So at least take solace in the fact that the trend of transphobia tends to show up in the worser of films.
Yeah, but I'll still be thinking about it as long as people say that Ace Ventura: Pet Detective is a fucking great movie. And I'm like, yeah, well, I don't know, kind of hard to forgive.
Yeah, I was telling Claude about that awful scene, and then like I was like, I haven't seen that in ages. Like, I wonder how it holds up. And we rewatched it, and I was like, this is worse than I remembered.
Yeah, they expose and sexually humiliate and literally expose before throwing up. Anyway, that's a different discussion.
Even Joe Rogan condemned Ace Ventura. That's how fucking shit, how awful and degrading that scene is. Even Joe Rogan took a stand against it and was like, that was fucked up.
That's when you know it's bad.
Yeah. If Joe Rogan is condemning something, it's a step beyond. It really is.
Beyond the pale. And yet this fucking movie did it. This movie's obsessed with gender.
It is. It really is. But the reason that I was so fond of this film and the reason it grew on me is that as soon as Rox did enter the family, it took off and it was actually showing him and Daphne living in the house. And the thing is that Danny DeVito voicing Rox and Diane Keaton voicing Daphne, I think that's what raised it for me, because if it was just two random voice actors, I'd be like, meh. But hearing Diane Keaton's whimsical voice and DeVito's very familiar voice as well, when they go on their little adventure together and they're doing like these things in the street, like she's getting like messy in the puddle and they're eating food out of bins, he's like showing her what it's like to be like a bit rough around the edges, and they're having this back and forth, and there's this like sweet little music playing in the background. I was like, if I closed my eyes, this feels like a Woody Allen film in like a kind of nice way, and like one of those like weird little moments where like they're walking through New York City being like, I've always loved the city.
Just watch Lady and the Tramp. It's the same thing.
My dad never said I could paint, and I've always wanted to be a writer. And he's like, yeah, New York's pretty nice. I'm like, this is just a Woody Allen film. This is lovely. So I was all behind it. And then also, again, as I said, Kirstie Alley is really likable. John Travolta and her have lovely chemistry. And also, yeah, just watching all of the actors play off each other was there was some genuinely cute little one-liners and like genuinely like some sweet little jokes.
But it's hard to forgive. I understand why you're like, I like Danny DeVito as Rox, but it's also hard to forgive Rox as a character when he's sitting on the couch, sitting on the on a chair, and then Daphne, the Diane Keaton dog, walks in, and then we hear the Danny DeVito voiceover go, oh, who's that? Oh, swing! And like, why is there a dog erection joke in this talking child movie? Why is there a dog erection joke in this talking child movie?
Apparently, Look Who's Talking doesn't have a great history in terms of like, in some of the reviews I read, some people were saying that this was the most family-friendly of all the films. And because some of the Look Who's Talking films have a lot of swearing in it and a lot of like sexual like innuendo.
But that's also my problem, because Look Who's Talking 1 isn't a kids movie. It's an adult romantic comedy that for some reason has Bruce Willis voicing the baby. Like, it is a perfectly functional, aimed at adults romantic comedy. And like I said, Look Who's Talking 2 is even more adult themed because it's like the entire thing is the parents arguing, and it's about divorce and the potential failure of relationships to stay through a hardship. This is
I don't want that shit. I want a good family comedy. I want them to be in love.
This is total whiplash. Faithful. I do agree, though. I did, like, once it started and they smiled at each other at least once, I was like, okay, at least I didn't have to go through that, because 2 was upsetting.
Oh, see, yeah, I actually liked their relationship, and I liked that. I liked that it was about how we just wanted to be with his family for Christmas.
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on?
When it was Look Who's Talking
now I'm feeling ashamed. I feel like I'm getting shamed for liking this film. I want this to be a safe space. I want this to be a place where I can fully express to you that I liked the family themes in this film.
I'm not defending it versus 2, because when I was watching 2 and there was just a little 3-year-old whose parents were arguing the whole time, I'm like, this is too real and relatable, and I don't want this in my movie. This I enjoyed more, but it was also easily the worst movie of the 3.
Yeah, I'm completely unsurprised. Also, I loved the dream sequences.
Yeah.
About, like, with their jealousy, like when James is away with Samantha. And by the way, Samantha, that English actress, I couldn't figure out what she was from. Like, I couldn't figure out where she had been, like what she'd been in. And I realized she was in Dracula Dead and Loving It, the Mel Brooks and Leslie Nielsen film. She played Lucy, the first girl to get bitten, and she just has such a particular voice and like these wide eyes and angular face, and like she was so familiar the whole time. But either way, James is working for Samantha. He's away from home a lot, and he and Molly are both having these jealous dreams about one another. He's worried about Molly going back to the guy from the first Look Who's Talking, called Albert. Oh, it's probably Albert.
The George Segal character. I forgot his name.
Yeah. And then she's having these jealous dreams about him and Samantha like tango dancing. And that bit where they're tango dancing in her dream and they go, she bought it. She thinks we're in Dallas. The dumb cow. And then they lunge back and kiss. That made me genuinely laugh. I was like, this is fun. This is good camp fun.
Easily the standout of the whole movie, especially because like then they're each doing it. And then there's like a split screen between each of their dreams where they're being unfaithful, and then they both simultaneously go, wait, this isn't us, and they turn around to face each other and they walk into each other's dreams, which is revealed was one set the whole time that's just colored down the middle, and then they start like talking metatextually about the dream. That was incredible. I loved that scene.
It was a great sequence. There was even this really like all of those montage dream sequences and also some of the flashbacks were really funny. Like there was that bit where I think he says to Kirstie Alley about getting a dog. He's like, wasn't there anything that you wanted as a kid that you could never get? And it cuts back to her being 13, storming into her bedroom, being like, when will I grow breasts? And throwing something on the bed. And it just cuts straight back. And I was like, That I didn't expect that, but that was genuinely funny. Like, I thought that was a funny moment.
Which I think is interesting because cutback gags are not part of the visual language of Look Who's Talking 1 or 2. I don't know if there's any dream sequences in Look Who's Talking 1, but also...
I don't think there is either.
But B, cutback gags weren't a staple of sitcoms yet in 1993. Like... That's really kind of forward comedically, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I was stunned by it. I was like, wow, like this is great. Like that made that joke so much funnier than her being like, well, I couldn't grow breasts. Like,
yeah,
it was just great. And like, yeah, I thought that some of those moments, that's what I mean. There was genuinely moments that made me laugh or made me giggle. And those montage sequences really, that moment of them stepping out of each other's dreams and being like, this isn't us. And then just having this frank discussion about their jealousy and their fears. I was like, this is a nice and a healthy display of natural jealousy in a relationship.
Yeah.
There's also that bit where her mom's saying to her, like, you know, your dad got stuck on this island with 13 girls and they were all incredibly attractive and he was very handsome and he swore to me that he didn't do anything with them. They just played what's that game?
Gin Rummy.
Gin Rummy.
You got it, just wrong order.
90% of the way. And
Rum Ginny.
And she like Kirstie Alley's like, did you believe him, Mom? She's like, of course not. But then I met all those girls later and they said that that wasn't even true itself. He just spent the whole time talking about me. And then it's just like, I don't know. It was just really sweet to watch Kirstie Alley being like genuinely struggling with the fact that potentially her jealousy was irrational, but she just couldn't figure it out. I was like, this is nice. This is a really lighthearted way to... I'm looking into this too deeply. This is a really nice, lighthearted way to look into jealousy and how it feels when you know it's probably irrational. But it really resonated.
It's weird that within the text of the movie, that resolves in a 40-minute sequence in which both Kirstie Alley and John Travolta successively have to fight off wolves before Kirstie Alley starves to death or freezes to death with her two children in a car. But
Rox and Daphne saved the day, baby.
The whole third act sequence is just on another planet. And then it's Christmas. Oh my God. Okay. They fight off the wolves. John Travolta, they're staying in this cabin. They think that all is lost. And then John Travolta gets led the way by Rox. And he shows up in this big red coat, and Mikey thinks it's Santa Claus, but it's just his dad. And they're finally back together, and they proclaim their love for each other again. And then the like park ranger that found Kirstie Alley is like by the radio and says, wait, what's that? And they all go to the radio and it's sleigh bells and they turn it up and then you hear ho, ho, ho. And it's heavily implied that Santa is real and also broadcasting on a radio band. Like, why is this in the Look Who's Talking movie? Why is Santa confirmed canon in the Look Who's Talking movies?
What, you don't think that Santa is real?
I don't think he's real in most movies. Whether he's real in our universe is still to be discovered.
You're a skeptic? I just think you should watch Polar Express more and just see what it does.
But that's what I'm saying. Like in
that
movies,
fucking film really taught me to believe. And in the words of Josh Groban at the end of the film, believe in what your heart is saying.
Oh my God.
Hear the melody that's playing. There's so much to give. There's so much we have to give. Give yourself the wings to fly, and you will know the reason why. You will only live if you just believe.
That movie taught me that Tom Hanks can be terrifying in a lot of different ways.
That film taught me that Tom Hanks shouldn't be allowed to have full control over an animated film because he will play every character.
That film taught me that CG probably needed a couple more years to cook.
But it also taught me a lot about hot chocolate.
I've never known more about hot chocolate. I shouldn't half do the accent. That's the weirdest combo. No. Hot chocolate. I really just wanted to, before we did, because we talked about it a little bit. Maybe we don't have to. I just wanted to talk about the kids psychically communicate to each other. The dogs psychically communicate to each other. What I don't understand, is this a movie where the voiceover is translating kid speak and dog speak, right? Or is it more, as the movie seems to imply much more heavily, that kids and children actually can communicate telepathically. And if that's the case, if dogs are able to telepathically communicate in the same way that kids do, what does that say about sentience of both dogs and children?
Listen, the logic of this universe isn't foolproof, but I thought of it as not them talking via ESPN. Fuck ESP.
Jesus.
I do it every time, man. But I thought of it as it being a translation of baby and dog talk. The barks are them talking, and the is
so like
is a
in number
translation.
one, it's just that Mikey is trying to say something, and the movie thought that the way we could best filter that understanding is through a very New York Bruce Willis.
Yeah. And the best perspective to have into a dog's life is through the perspective of Danny DeVito.
I actually don't
himself.
disagree with that one.
Danny DeVito is very dog-like. I think he's more orangutan-like, to be honest. He's got like that barrel body and the long limbs.
He's in real... Oh, Jesus. In real life, he's so like erudite and put together, but he just plays like a foul grub so frequently.
He does. That's what I love about him. Like Danny DeVito, I genuinely respect him, and I think he's filthy at the same time.
Yeah.
He's a grubby little man. All right. Do you want to hear some trivia?
Yes.
IMDb trivia.
I didn't find very much about this film because everything was very unremarkable, and it often really just touched on this person has worked with this person before, which is never very
Wow,
interesting.
I hate when the trivia is just that.
I found some interesting trivia about the first film, which I thought was relevant in this film as well, just while we're on the subject. But for the first film, some of the trivia that I found was that according to Kirstie Alley in her memoir, she fell in love with John Travolta during filming, but she stayed faithful to her husband. And that was during the first Look Who's Talking. It must have been really tough when she had to work with him 2 more times. Not sure how that played out.
It must have been tough for her husband when she was like, can you proofread this? And he was like, whoa,
Yeah.
what?
When was that? Babe, you don't mention me at all. At all.
That makes sense to me, though, because in Look Who's Talking 1, they have such genuine chemistry. Like, they really pop on
exactly.
screen.
And I mean, at that time, John Travolta was with his partner, Kelly. So I'm sure, obviously, like nothing really happened because apparently I thought he was quite devoted to Kelly from what I read. But either way. Also, I found this really cute. Of all the roles he's played, John Travolta said that the character he plays in this film, James, is the most like his real personality.
That doesn't surprise me. Like, there's a point in this where he's about to go to the job interview and I don't know, Kirstie Alley's character says something, but then he looks at her and he's like, I'm funny. And I'm like, that's just genuinely John Travolta. He's like,
Yeah.
I'm a goofy guy.
Yeah. It was literally that scene. I was like, that seems really very John Travolta-esque. It made me burst out laughing.
There's also a bit in 2 where he like goes to pick up the kid from Kid Gym, whatever that is, but Gilbert Gottfried makes an appearance there, and he just starts doing
Kid Gym is just childcare, I'm pretty sure.
yeah,
That's
but
what I
like
thought.
specifically with a angle of physical education, I guess.
They're getting shredded at the Kid Gym. They're getting fucking ripped. It's leg day at the Kid Gym.
But he just starts dancing around and like leading the kids on this dance, and it's one of the better scenes in the movie. And Brooke was actually the one who pointed out, like, my girlfriend. He has this
Got a
way.
girlfriend?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
Nice, up top.
we can't high five. It's digital.
Here's another piece of trivia. It's not really a piece of trivia. It's just something that someone, I guess, just pointed out. It's funny that James is a pilot in the film because he's like John Travolta is also a trained pilot in real life. So he probably felt very at home there.
Yeah.
It's not a great piece of trivia.
Was John Travolta a pilot by the time that Look Who's Talking 1 was filming? Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Because I'm like,
I think by this point in the 90s he was. That's kind of weird. Also, this is my favorite piece of trivia.
okay.
And this is the last piece of trivia that you're fucking getting out of me, you absolute little fucking whore. Olivia Newton-John was considered for the role of Samantha, but she turned it down because of her battle with breast cancer at the time. But the
Aw.
idea of Olivia Newton-John playing Samantha
Yeah.
against John Travolta would have just been excellent. She even looks like the woman that they ended up casting.
Yeah, and metatextual, because part of the problem with the story and conflict in this movie is that like Samantha is never a believable alternative for Kirstie Alley, which like on one level you want in a movie like this because you don't want to reflect on the main couple and go, oh yeah, they don't work together.
Yeah.
But they need to have some reason as to why there's like tension or believability as to why John Travolta would potentially go to her. If it's Olivia Newton-John, you wouldn't have to work that hard because you're like, oh, it's them. I know that they work well together.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. Like, there is reasons that he would potentially leave his wife for this woman. She's very rich and very wealthy and very successful. Like, she has a lot of, like, very material things.
Yeah.
But there's no chemistry. But yeah, Olivia Newton-John showing up as Samantha would have fucking popped, man. That would have been excellent.
Absolutely.
Do you want to hear some reviews?
I would love to hear some reviews.
Reviews!
All right. I guess if I must. On review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes,
Oh, yes.
this film has a rare approval rating of 0%.
Whoa!
Meaning no favorable reviews whatsoever.
Wow. Even Ultraviolet got
huge.
some positive reviews.
Yeah, it's very rare apparently. So I'm here being like, I loved it.
Yeah.
And it's actually really, really bad.
I feel like, by the way, normally I'm the one with the controversial I liked it takes. This is wild that it's you.
I honestly think it was just all that. It's their chemistry and the montage sequences that really got me. And sorry, the dream sequences. Roger Ebert gave the film 1 star out of 4 and remarked that it looked like it was chucked up by an automatic screenwriting machine. Sorry,
Yeah.
Leslie Dixon. Leonard Moulton's film guide gave it 2 stars out of 4, saying the first one was cute, the second one was dreadful. This third entry in the series falls somewhere in between. So
Oh.
he thought it was actually better than the second.
I get where he's coming from.
This is an IMDb review, and there weren't that many, to be honest, left by Top Male 123, and it's just called Look Who's Talking Now. Very good film. I liked the way they used dogs and not babies this time. The dogs are very funny. They're good entertainment. I like Rox better than Daphne, but Daphne gets to be more likable as it gets further into the film. 10 out of 10. And then here's a 10 out of 10 review left by Russ Robinson, and it's just called Fantastic. Now that the kids know how to talk, it's now the animals that start to talk. I did like this movie. I feel like this guy wrote that log line, by the way, the one that I started with. I did like this movie. I liked this one better than Look Who's Talking 1 and 2. I give this movie full stop. The dogs that were talked were Danny DeVito and Diane Keaton. 10 out of 10. He really left us on a cliffhanger.
Yeah. But I know who voiced the dogs, and that's good.
Yeah, well, in lieu of Ross Robinson's review, what would you give this movie?
Look, I clearly liked it less than you did. This movie gives me the impression of when you know when a sitcom has too many seasons, and so it'll be like a sitcom about youngish people or about a particular plot line, but then by season 8 or whatever, they've all like gotten married and had kids, and then it kind of just becomes a show about them having kids instead of what you actually signed on for. That's what this movie is, because look who's the sharp tonal relief that this provides to Look Who's Talking 1 is staggering. It is nothing like what I signed on for. And it doesn't resolve the central problem of the first one, which is why does the baby talk? And also a baby VO movie is a very different movie than a multiple dog VO movie. I don't understand why, like, making that decision totally breaks the perspective that I'm there from. And it's not like babies talking is a premise that didn't have at least one more movie in it, you know? I didn't really like it at all. I do think the dream sequences were good, and I did enjoy that it didn't make me miserable in the way that 2 did, but it did make me miserable because it has no discernible structure whatsoever, and that makes it hard to call it a complete story. It's not a story. It's just some stuff for 90 minutes. I'm going to give it a 3.7. It's not great. The dream sequences prevent it from being just a straight 3, though.
I think that the reason I like this film so much, in comparison to, say, The Shaggy Dog, which technically rated higher, but it's fucking terrible, appalling film. The things that this film got right is the cast is really good. Like, the cast has like genuinely some really good performance, not even performances, but good actors, good voice actors. It was also made in the 90s, and there's an element of nostalgia when it comes to family films in the 90s versus, say, 2006. Like, the fact that this is 1994 and The Shaggy Dog is 2006 gives it totally different feelings and vibes. And there's something cozier about family films in the 90s. It feels like they're always cusping on feeling like a John Hughes film. So for that reason, it also had a nice vibe. I enjoyed this film. I thought the montage, like the dream sequences were really fun. And I wouldn't want to watch it again, but if you put a gun to my head, I would definitely wouldn't complain. And that's really good for this podcast. So I will give this a whopping 5.2 out of 10.
Whoa! Holy shit, that's higher than I thought.
I would watch it over the good year.
Whoa.
Over a good year for sure.
I mean, for me, I would say, why not just watch Look Who's Talking 1 again? That's a much better movie.
He didn't give me the option. I got a gun to my head. What can I do? Well, that was Look Who's Talking Now. Don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter under Rate Descend Pod. We're on TikTok under Rating Descending. And we're on Gmail at ratingdescending@gmail.com. So send us an email. Send us a dick pic. Who cares?
Don't send us a dick pic. I read all the emails. Don't send us a dick pic.
Show us what you got.
But you could also find us on our own personal social medias. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at michelle.stclair.
And I'm on Instagram under Abigail J. Ward.
And please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. It genuinely really helps. And also, I wanted to plug something for Australian listeners. Check out Kairos, Kairos, because it's now on SBS On Demand, which I'm pretty sure is a free service. It's a film that I edited a few years ago that its distribution got kind of fucked by COVID, but I'm glad that now there's somewhere to watch it. So I just want to plug that. Go check it out. It's a good movie.
Yes, do it. I saw it and it made me cry, but that was also because I was proud of Michelle. There was a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
Well, what are we watching next week, Mishmel?
Next week, we are watching Critters 3.
Oh, I don't know anything about Critters. I should probably do my research on this one.
I mean, the main thing that I know about Critters 3 is that when I went to go buy it, I almost bought the Blu-ray for Tremors thinking that it was the same movie. So, hey, what do I know?
Fair. Well, join us there next week, you absolute bunch of losers.
You bunch of dogs.
You disgust us.
You're a bunch of trash
outta
boys. Trash boys,
Big
trash
trash
ladies, and trash everything else in between. Just a bunch of garbage sitting steaming on the
All
sidewalk.
trash people in honor of Danny DeVito. You're all trash.